Hi, this is John Hartr, and welcome to our 90th birthday celebration of Warner Brothers' first major animated star, Porky Pig. We'll be dedicating the next 3 episodes to him. First out, we'll be going over the giant 5-disc set, Porky Pig 101, and we'll do it all in one episode. Sort of.
I knew I should have made a left turn at Albuquerque. I knew I should have taken that left turn at Albuquerque. I knew I should have taken that left turn at Albuquerque. I should have turned left at Albuquerque.
So welcome to a major milestone for Looney Tunes, the anniversary of the debut of their first major star. And like I said, this will be the first of 3 episodes devoted to going over his catalog, or at least the ones with his name on it. Before we do that, let's go back to the 20th century and see where Looney Tunes home video releases were at that time. Starting in the 80s, Looney Tunes came out on scattershot VHS tapes, usually just putting out things in a random fashion. At best, they concentrated on a single or one set of characters. With the advent of DVDs, people began to clamor for something a little more comprehensive. In the early 2000s, Warner's began releasing 4-disc sets called Golden Collections. It did begin to get things out in large groups, usually 60 at a time. And they did begin to do long-needed restorations, since the higher picture quality of digital brought out the flaws in the tune's current state quite clearly. During the restoration process, they began to find original negatives and in some cases original titles for the shorts that had been reissued as blue ribbon titles. However, by Volume 6, sales had dwindled down to the point where the series ended. As a replacement, Warner's began the Superstar series, concentrating on single characters or sets of characters, Tweety and Sylvester, Reverend Coyote. As we've gone over, these releases had their own issues. There were the widescreen problems. Some were straight-up reissues of tunes already released in the Golden Collections. The Pepe Le Pew disc, and one we'll do a little later, collected entire catalogs showing the unfulfilled promise of the line. As they brought that series to a close after around 10 releases, they began the Platinum Collections. These were originally meant to focus on releasing the tunes on Blu-ray, but then they decided to release them on DVD, sort of defeating the purpose of canceling the Golden Collections. This line ended quickly after just 3 volumes, and it looked like the hope of releasing all 1,000 Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies on home video would remain a dream. However, as kind of an experiment, after both the Platinum and Superstar series came to an end, Warner Archives released an expansive Porky Pig collection in September 2017 called Porky Pig 101. It's a play on words, since this is kind of your basic Porky Pig, but it's also an exact description because it contains the first 101 cartoons Porky appeared in, from his first in 1935 through his last black and white cartoon in 1943. This was the biggest collection yet, but it also faced its own hurdles. Owing to the great expense of restoring all these cartoons, the decision was made to use previously released restorations alongside unrestored versions of anything that hadn't come out yet. This didn't sit well with fans and scholars who went over the issues with the unrestored tunes with a fine-tooth comb. This in turn led to sales not being as robust as hoped, and annoying Jerry Beck to this day. I get both sides. I'll be honest, I don't dwell too much on things like whether a cartoon had the correct colorings for whatever year it was released, but I'm glad there are people who do keep track of these things, so that at some point, resources allow, things can be restored to as close to their original version as possible. In this case, going in, it was made pretty clear that these aren't all going to be fully restored, so I just accepted it for what it was and was happy we were able to get this much on one set. Especially knowing Warner's financial issues this century, I'm actually stunned this exists. For this episode, since we have a lot to go over, we're just going to deal with the cartoons. We'll sort them by release year, do our usual dates, directors, and writers, plus try to find something significant about each. I'll also make note if it's been restored and released somewhere else, which accounts for, I believe, 36 out of the 101. My goal was to spend no more than 30 seconds on each so we can get this done in around 40-45 minutes. The next time, we'll do Porky's story by concentrating on a number of milestones along the way and go into a little more depth on a few of these. So here is the rundown of all 101 cartoons, starting in 1935 with the first 2. I haven't got a hat, Released 90 years ago today, March 2nd, 1935, directed by Friz Freleng, probably written by Ted Pierce. This is the debut of Beans the Cat, his nephews, Ham and X, Oliver Owl, and yes, Porky Pig. It has been restored and originally released on Golden Collection Volume 3. This one will go in depth about next episode. The other 1935 cartoon is Gold Diggers of 49, released 8 months later on November 2nd, directed by Fred Tex Avery and written by Cal Howard. As you can see, Beans is the nominal star. Another restored one, this was released on Golden Collection Volume 5. Porky's got a deep voice in this one. I guess they forgot to speed it up.
If you get that bag for me, you can have my daughter.
On to 1936, where Porky appeared in 15 cartoons, and maybe more. We'll deal with that next time. And the first 5 on the disc from this year do not appear in release order. Why, I have no idea. This is why we do the dates. Boom Boom was released on Leap Day, February 29th. This was directed by early staple Jack King and written by George Manuel, King of the Censored 11. This is another Bean star. Not only has this one not been released in restored form, it's actually in the public domain, as quite a number of these are. Alpine Antics came on January 18th, see, not in order, directed by King, written by Melvin Miller. This was restored and appears on Golden Collection Volume 5. Porky doesn't even talk in this one, again, Beans is the big star. The Blowout was released on February 10th by Avery and Howard, with a familiar name doing the animation. Another one not restored in this disc, but it's currently on Max, all cleaned up. Or was, anyway. Porky's solo, but this one is actually not his first solo cartoon. Westward Woe came out on April 25th, directed by King and written by Sid Marcus in an early Warner's appearance. This is the last time most of the gang from I Haven't Got a Hat appeared together. This is another unrestored public domain short. I'm sensing a pattern here. Let's see if this keeps up. Plain Tippy was released on January 4th, my buddy Mike's birthday, some 30 years later. Directed by Avery and written by Howard. This one's here unrestored, but it looks like it's been done and is currently on Max. Or was, you get the point. This was actually Porky's first starring cartoon. Only Little Kitty from the earlier gang is here with him. Fishtails came out on May 23rd, directed by King and written by Miller. This is one of those that has some incorrect music in the intro. It's been restored, but apparently that hasn't been fixed yet. Shanghai Chipmates was released on June 20th, directed by King and written by Manuel. This one may have been restored, but is currently unavailable anywhere but here. Porky's Pet came out on July 11th, again by King and Miller. It's not restored here, but it was on the late Boomerang app and has been on Tune In With Me in restored form. Porky the Rainmaker was released on August 1st, directed by Avery and written by Pierce. This basic plot was used in a later cartoon, Sue Me. Any wonder why we haven't seen it? This is another not restored here, but newly done on Max. Porky's Poultry Plant came out on August 22nd. This was the first cartoon directed by Frank Tashlin in his Frank Tash nom de direct persona, and written by Manuel. It's also the first cartoon with music supervised by Carl Stalling. This appeared on Golden Collection Volume 4 in restored form. I think this one we'll be talking about next time. Porky's Moving Day was released on September 12th, done by King and Miller. This was the final Warner's tune for Jack King. He went back to Disney and had a busy career with them through the 40s. This is also the last with the 4 characters here in the intro. It's in the public domain, so it's not restored here. Milk and Money came out on October 3rd, directed by Avery and written by Ben Hardaway. The intro in the background would be used in the black and whites until 1942. This was originally released on Golden Collection Volume 5, so it's here in its restored form. Little Bo Porky was released on November 14th by Tashlin and Millar. This is an obvious riff on Beau Geste, which was a popular silent film, but still 3 years before the famous Gary Cooper version. This was actually the last time Treg Brown worked as a film editor before moving over to sound, where he stayed for the next 3 decades. This was on Golden Collection Volume 4, so it's restored here. The Village Smithy came out on December 5th, directed by Avery and written by Howard, based on a poem by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. It wasn't restored here, but has been done in the meantime and is on Max. Or was. Victim of another purge. Our final 1936 tune is Porky in the North Woods, released on December 19th by Tashlin and Miller. Future director Norm McCabe gets his first credit here as an animator. This is also from the Tashlin-centric disc on Golden Collection Volume 4, meaning it's restored here. 1937 was a year of big changes for the popular porcine. He did the previous year one better and appeared in 16 cartoons that year. Porky the Wrestler was released on January 9th, 1937, directed by Avery and written by Howard. Mel does make an appearance here, but it's just a few whoops. Elmer Waite worked on a couple of Looney Tunes, but passed away later this year. That's where Mr. Fudd got his name. Porky's Road Race came out on February 7th by Tashlin, as Tash, and Miller. Lots of stars here competing in the race, including...
I know why everybody's such a big rush.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a whole rundown next time. This was originally released on Golden Collection Volume 3. Picador Porky was released on February 27th by Avery and Hardaway. This was the first time Mel did some clearly discernible voice work.
La cucaracha, la cucaracha, play it on the old guitar. La cucaracha, play it in the shore.
Now, MeTV has aired a restored version with an Adobe title card, so we're waiting for that to show up somewhere else. Porky's Romance came out on April 3rd by Tashlin and Miller. This was the last time Joe Doherty did Porky's voice.
Tuna, I want you to that is
Plus, there's another voice in here that is very familiar. We'll definitely be doing this one next time out. This was also on Golden Collection Volume 3. Porky's Duck Hunt was released on April 17th by Avery and Hardaway. We did this one a few episodes back on the Essential Daffy Duck disc. First Daffy, first Mel is Porky.
Don't worry, it's not loaded.
If there was an Essential Porky Pig set, this would have been on it, had there not been an Essential Daffy Duck. Porky and Gabby came out on May 15th, and this one has some interesting credits. It was co-written by Bob Clampett and Chuck Jones, and was directed by one of the Kansas City 5 of iWorks during his very short time at Warner's. Now, this is the third in a row where they're trying to introduce a new character, but Gabby didn't make it out of the black and white days. It's not restored here, but it was restored on Max. Porky's Building was released on June 23rd by Tashlin and George Manuel. This is another one that's unrestored here, but was on Max restored. Porky's Super Service came out on July 3rd. This was the second and final iWorks cartoon. Clampett and Jones were actually co-directors on the two tunes. Clampett took over the unit when Ub left, then Chuck got Tashlin's unit when he left for Columbia, then came back later before leaving again. This is another unrestored here, restored on Max Short. Porky's Bedtime Story was released on July 24th. Ub iWorks planned to do this, but left and was taken over by Clampett with help from Jones. This was remade, in some places shot for shot and line for line, as Tick Tock Tuckered, which we did on the Frustrated Fowl Superstars disc. Another not restored, then restored, now short. Porky's Railroad was released on August 7th by Tashlin and Miller. This was on Golden Collection Volume 4 on the Tashlin-centric Disc 2 and is also in the public domain. Get Rich Quick Porky came out on August 28th. This one has confusing credits. iWorks planned it but didn't work on it. Clampett did the heavy lifting with directing and writing, assisted by Jones. Now, this was Gabby Goat's last appearance, and this one is also in the public domain. Porky's Garden was released on September 11th, well before, done by Avery and Howard. This one has a tip of the hat to another character at another company.
That's an insult. That guy can't do that to me. Why, I'll lay him amongst the sweet peas.
Before this release, it was more than likely you'd have seen a colorized version of this than the black and white one. MeTV did show a restored black and white copy at one point, but this isn't it. This one is in the public domain as well. Rover's Rival came out on October 9th by Clampett with Jones assisting. This is significant not because of what's in it, but how it starts and ends. It's the first official Looney Tunes with the merry-go-round broke down at the beginning. and ends with Porky bursting through the drums saying,
That's all, folks.
"It's not restored here, but it has been done." The Case of the Stuttering Pig was released appropriately enough on October 30th, right before Halloween. It's by Tashlin and Miller. This was on Golden Collection Volume 4 on the Tashlin disc. Now, this is one of my all-time favorites of the black and white era. There's lots of things to talk about with this one. We'll do it in depth next episode. Porky's Double Trouble came out on November 13th by Tashlin and Manuel. This was originally on Golden Collection Volume 5, and it was the last time Petunia showed up in her original design. The last one from 1937 was Porky's Hero Agency, released on December 4th by the Clampett-Jones Consortium. Writer on this one was Howard Baldwin, who briefly worked at Warner's before leaving the business, then returning as an animator with Jay Ward in the late 60s. This one has another shout scout to a certain sailor. This was on the DVD for the Betty Davis film Marked Woman before coming out here. 1938 did 1937 one better with Porky in 17 cartoons. First is Porky's Papa, released on January 15th. This was the last of the Porky shorts where Chuck Jones worked under Bob Clampett as assistant director, and the second of 5 for Howard Baldwin. This was originally on Golden Collection Volume 5, so it's in the restored camp. Porky at the Crocodero came out on February 5th, directed by Tashlin, and is the only known writing credit for Lou Landsman. Lots of celebrity impersonations here as Porky hangs out at the nightclub. This was also on Golden Collection Volume 5 and restored here as well. What Price Porky was released on February 26th, written and directed by Clampett. The title is a play on the popular silent film What Price Glory. This was Daffy's third time out and first time in a Clampett-directed short.
Which way is the front? Thanks.
This was also on Golden Collection Volume 5, as well as appearing on the DVD for the 1938 version of the Dawn Patrol, which was spoofed in 1964's Dumb Patrol, which features Porky as Smedley. See? It works out all around. Porky's Phony Express came out on March 19th, written by Miller and directed by Cal Dalton and Cal Howard. Who knew there were so many Cals back then? Ask Mr. Coolidge. They got the job because Frizz was over at MGM at this point. After a few more tunes, Cal Howard went over to Paramount and was replaced by Ben Hardaway. Very consequential move, as we'll see. Porky's 5 and 10 was released on April 16th, directed by Clampett and written by Baldwin and the aforementioned Ben Hardaway. This was an extra on the DVD for Hollywood Hotel before this set. It's since been restored and was streaming on Max. Porky's Hare Hunt came out on April 30th, directed by Hardaway and written by Baldwin. We went over this one on Platinum Collection Volume 2 in Episode 6, the first rabbit of some consequence in a Warner Brothers cartoon. Injun Trouble was released on May 21st, directed by Clampett and the last written by Baldwin. This was remade by Bob as Wagon Heels, which is on Golden Collection Volume 5, and another DVD we'll be doing soon. This was also the name of the last Looney Tune ever made, back in 1969, starring Cool Cat. I know I said we should separate those two out, but they were called Looney Tunes. Porky the Fireman came out on June 4th by Tashlin and Miller. This was on Golden Collection Volume 4, so it's been restored. It's not seen so much thanks to... Porky's Party was released on June 25th, written and directed by Clampett. This was on Golden Collection Volume 3. According to the storyboards, Gabby Goat was supposed to be in the short, but he was replaced by a one-off character. Porky Spring Planting came out on July 16th by Tashlin and Manuel. This was unrestored on this set, but has been done and is up on Max. Porky and Daffy was released on August 6th, written and directed by Clampett. This was also unrestored here, but later released in restored form on the Blu-ray for Angels with Dirty Faces. That one was on Max at one point. Now, 4 of the next 5 we've actually done. Holy Smoke came out on August 27th, done by Tashlin and Manuel, his last before going over to Fleischer. This was originally on Golden Collection Volume 5, then on Platinum Collection Volume 3, where we did it in Episode 9. Porky in Wacky Land was released on September 24th, directed by Clampett and written by Warren Foster, his first actually. This was originally released on Golden Collection Volume 2, then on Platinum Collection Volume 2, where we did it in Episode 6. We'll actually be going over it again when we do the remake Doe for the Dodo. It's the rare cartoon that's actually in the National Film Registry, so it's worth another going over. The one we haven't done yet is Porky's Naughty Nephew, which came out on October 15th, also by Clampett and Foster. This has the first appearance of Little Pinky, who causes all kinds of trouble. This is another of the unrestored here, now restored on Max ones. Porky in Egypt was released on November 5th, directed by Clampett, this time written by Ernest G. This was originally on Golden Collection Volume 3, then on Platinum Collection Volume 2. Like Porky and Wacky Land, we did this back in Episode 6. The Daffy Duck came out on November 26th, again by Clampett and G. This was originally on Golden Collection Volume 5, then on The Essential Daffy Duck, where we did it back in Episode 13. The final one for 1938 was Porky the Gob, released on December 17th, directed by Ben Hardaway and Cal Naughton, and written by Melvin Miller. This is another unrestored here, restored on Max. 1939 kept the ball rolling with Porky in an astonishing 18 cartoons that year, and none of them have fallen into the public domain. The Lone Stranger and Porky came out on January 7th, directed by Clampett and written by an uncredited Foster. This obviously spoofs The Lone Ranger, a popular radio show that had just hit the big screens a year before with its first serial. Porky doesn't actually even talk in this one. This is unrestored, and I'm not sure if it's been done yet. It's an Ill Wind was released on January 28th, directed by Hardaway and Dalton, and written by Miller. This features the first of two appearances for Dizzy Duck, who looks a lot closer to the duck at the other company than Daffy. Unrestored here, but it has been done. It's on the recent reissue of Idiot's Delight, Clark Gable's second build to Norma Shearer. I think he had better billing in another film this year. Porky's Tire Trouble came out on February 18th, done by Clampett and accredited Warren Foster. Unrestored here, was restored on Max. Porky's Movie Mystery was released on March 11th, again directed by Clampett but written by Ernest G. This is a spoof of the Mr. Moto series with Peter Lorre as a Japanese detective, meaning we're not going to be seeing this regularly anytime soon. Not restored here, and it's not on Max, so fair to say it's a little lower on the list of priorities to them right now. But then again, they did shine at Jones. Chicken Jitters came out on April Fool's Day, April 1st, also by Clampett and G, but Ernie's uncredited. Now, this one actually came out with the Errol Flynn star Dodge City, but isn't on the DVD or Blu-ray reissues of that film. You think when they have a chance with an Errol Flynn film, they jump on it. This is another one that's unrestored here, but is restored on Max. Porky and T-Biscuit was released on April 22nd by Hardaway, Dalton, and Miller. T-Biscuit is, of course, a play on the famed racehorse Seabiscuit. This is the final time Porky's Papa Phineas showed up. This was originally on Golden Collection Volume 3, so it's been restored for quite a while. Christopher Columbus Jr. came out on May 13th by Clampett and G, again uncredited. Has not been restored, at least it hasn't been released restored. As you can see by this one, probably not going to see it anytime soon. Polar Pals was released almost as far from winter as you can get, June 3rd by Clampett and Foster. This originally came out on Golden Collection Volume 5, so it's been restored. Scalp Trouble came out on June 24th by Clampett and G. This is the first Porky and Daffy team-up in quite a while. It was actually remade later as Slightly Daffy, which, as we've discussed, is one of 3 Daffys from the 40s yet to be released on home video. Old Glory was released a week later on July 1st, very appropriately. Directed by Chuck Jones and written by Bob Givens, Rich Hogan, and Dave Monahan. We did this back in Episode 2 since it was on Platinum Collection Volume 1. The original ending was restored for Golden Collection Volume 2. We're still missing that original opening. Porky's Picnic came out on July 15th by Clampett and Foster. It features the return of Petunia in her new design and Pinky. It's not restored here, but did show up restored on Ride, but never ended up on Max. Clampett and Foster are back with Wise Quacks, which was released on August 5th. Daffy looks a little different here. They tried this look out one more time before going back to the one we know. This was originally Golden Collection Volume 5. Porky's Hotel came out on September 2nd, again by Clampett and Foster with Warren uncredited. This was the last Dizzy Duck appearance. Unrestored here, but one turned up on the Blu-ray for the return of Dr. X, Humphrey Bogart's only horror film. Jeepers Creepers was released on September 23rd by Clampett and G. Only released on this disc in unrestored form. Probably not going to be seeing this one anytime soon because of the end.
My oh my, Tattletale Green.
Naughty Neighbors came out on October 7th by Clampett and Foster. This is the final Petunia in the Golden Age, and quite a popular one. It was on TV a lot. Didn't show up on disc until this released, with a hiccup in the titles here. The Max version is now restored. Wish it was still there. We're going to talk about this one a little bit next time. Pied Piper Porky was released on November 4th by Clampett and an uncredited Foster. This was sort of remade in the 40s as Paying the Piper, which we'll do on Golden Collection Volume 5. This one, however, only appeared here before getting its restoration on Max, before disappearing again. Porky the Giant Killer came out November 18th by Hardaway, Dalton, and Miller. The Giant sort of presages the one in Jack Wabbit and the Beanstalk. This is another one that's unrestored here, but is now restored and was on Max. The last Porky cartoon of the 30s is The Film Fan, released on December 16th. This was directed by Clampett. Writing was an uncredited Ernest G. This was also a pretty popular one on TV. It was originally on Golden Collection Volume 3. We'll also be doing this one next episode. 1940 began a bit of a slowdown for Porky. He was only in 15 shorts that year. Porky's Last Stand was released on January 6th by Clampett and Foster. This was the last time Daffy had the gray around his eyes here. This was an extra on the DVD for All This and Heaven 2, unrestored there as well as here. It's also in the public domain. Africa Squeak came out on January 27th by Clampett and G. This is a spoof of Stanley and Livingstone, while the title plays off the old documentary Africa Speaks, which the later Abbott and Costello film Africa Screams also did. This actually uses footage from the censored 11 cartoon Isle of Pingo Pongo, which means you won't be seeing this on TV anytime soon either. Alibaba Bound was released on February 10th by Clampett and Millar. I remember this one from the Baby Dumpling reference.
Don't worry, Blondie. I'll take good care of Baby Dumpling.
It used to be on TV all the time, not so much anymore. This one's also in the public domain. Pilgrim Porky came out on March 16th by Clampett and Foster. This was released on Golden Collection Volume 5, so it's restored here as well. Slap Happy Pappy was released on April 6th by Clampett. He was certainly on a Porky roll here, or was it a Taylor Ham? Little Jersey humor there. And Foster. Lots of celebrity caricatures here. This was unrestored on this release, but showed up on Ride and later MeTV in restored form. Porky's Poor Fish came out on April 27th by Clampett and Miller. This was originally on Golden Collection Volume 4, so it's been restored. They also included a bunch of the storyboards, which were included here as well. It's actually on Blue as an extra with the Seahawk starring you-know-who, Errol Flynn. Now this one definitely isn't by Bob Clampett. You Ought to Be in Pictures was released on May 18th, directed by Friz Freleng and written by Jack Miller. We did this back on Platinum Collection Volume 2. This was actually Friz's first tune back at Warner's after his time at MGM. He was better off here. I also need to point out here that the security guard is actually writer Michael Maltese.
Oh, so you're Porky Pig.
But voiced by Mel Blanc. The Chew and Bruin came out on June 8th, back to Bob directing and G writing. Porky's barely, sorry bad pun, in this one. Unrestored here, but a restored one popped up on MeTV Plus. I still don't get MeTV tunes, let alone Plus. Friz is back with Porky's Baseball Broadcast, released on July 6th, written by Hardaway. This is the second of Friz's baseball trilogy, with 1936's Boulevardier from the Bronx being first and Baseball Bugs being the third. Not restored here, the restoration was up on Ride and has turned up on various MeTV shows. Patient Porky came out on August 24th by Clampett and Foster. It's basically a reworking of the Daffy Doc, only without Daffy, but with the final appearance of Happy Rabbit. Notice it came out after A Wild Hare by about a month. This was originally on Golden Collection Volume 5. Calling Dr. Porky was released on September 21st, directed by Freleng and written by Jack Miller, his only other Porky. Funny how this came out right after Patient Porky. It wasn't restored here. In fact, this one has the wrong opening used, but a restored one was on Tune In With Me. Prehistoric Porky came out on October 12th by Clampett and Millar. Another one from Golden Collection Volume 5. Daffy got his prehistoric cartoon in color. The Sourpuss was released on November 2nd by Clampett and Foster. This one was on Golden Collection Volume 4, and when it did show up on TV, it lost this segment here.
Well, now I've seen everything.
We'd see it again with a little help from Dr. Seuss, but that's another story. Porky's Hired Hand came out on November 30th, directed by Freeling and written by Dave Monahan. I found one notation for this that says it's in the public domain, but Looney Tunes Wiki has a copyright renewal date on it, so I'll go with that. The opening is messed up here, but a restored print actually showed up on Movies, the one with the exclamation point, first in late 2023. The last for the year is A Timid Toreador, released on December 21st. Written by Miller. Clampett started directing this, but fell ill, and Norm McCabe stepped in and finished it up. It was his first director credit. The opening on this is messed up, but it's been corrected on a new restoration that was on MeTV. It did fall into the public domain, however. 1941 was more of a cutback, possibly reflecting a move away from black and white cartoons. He was in 13 that year. Porky's Newsreel came out on January 11th. This was the other cartoon started by Clampett and finished by McCabe and written by Warren Foster. This was the last black and white Porky that Warner's kept under copyright. It wasn't restored here, but has been done and was on Max, depending on when they leave it up or not. Porky's Bare Facts was released on March 29th by Freeling and Maltese. As mentioned, all the shorts from here forward are in the public domain, but some have been made available in restored form. This one has been just on Max only so far. Porky's Preview came out on April 19th, directed by Avery and written by Monahan. This was actually Avery's last Porky and his last black and white cartoon. It was originally on Golden Collection Volume 5 and is available in HD on the Sergeant York Blu-ray. Porky's Aunt was released on May 10th, directed by Chuck Jones and written by Rich Hogan. It's got the same type of title card as Goodnight Elmer and Elmer's Pet Rabbit, just in black and white. This hasn't been seen much, thanks to a guest appearance by Chuck's characters from a few years earlier, Inky. Yeah. Akoi Decoy came out on June 7th by Clampett and Millar. It's another one of the bookstore review tunes like the later, book review. They even use the same bookstore front as that cartoon. Porky's Prize Pony has released on June 21st by Jones and Hogan. This one has been restored, sort of. It showed up on MeTV Plus on the Sunday night show, but with the wrong introduction. Meet John Doughboy came out on July 5th, close enough for a patriotic tune. This one by Clampett and Foster. This was released in the wartime section of Golden Collection Volume 6 and was restored there. We the Animals Squeak was released on August 9th by Clampett and Millar. Still waiting for a restoration to show up for this one. It's not restored here. The Henpecked Duck came out on August 30th by Clampett and Foster. As you can tell by the title, Daffy is in it as well. This was the last cartoon that had the intro with Porky and the Drum. Not restored here, but a new version did turn up on MeTV 2 or 3 years ago. Notes to You was released on September 20th by Freeling and Maltese. This was later remade by Frizz as Back Alley Uproar with Sylvester and Elmer. This was also the first with the Porky on the Fence intro. We'll talk a little more about this one in a later episode. Robinson Crusoe Jr. came out on October 25th, directed by McCabe and written by Millar. This is McCabe's first solo directed cartoon. We don't see it much these days because Friday sounds like you know who.
Hello, boss. What kept you?
Yeah, poor Eddie Anderson. It might have been restored already, but it has not been seen in public. Porky's Midnight Matinee was released on November 22nd by Jones and an uncredited Hogan. Another one we don't see much these days due to stereotype issues. Again, not restored, and there might be a wrong opening issue as well. The last for the year is Porky's Pooch, which came out on December 27th by Clampett and Foster. This is the final one Clampett did with his old unit, which was taken over by McCabe. The plot for this was redone by Chuck later on as Little Orphan Airedale, with Charlie Dog taking the place of the one here. 1942 and 43 began Porky's move away from star to supporting cast member. The set has the 5 remaining black and white shorts from those years, but he was in several color cartoons that we'll discuss next time out. Porky's Pastry Pirates was released on January 18th, 1942, directed by Friz Freleng and written by Dave Monahan. This is not restored here, but has been done. It's just not available right now. Damn Max Purge. Who's Who in the Zoo came out on Valentine's Day, February 14th, 1942, directed by Norm McCabe and written by Melvin Miller. This is a non-restored public domain cartoon. A week later, on February 21st, Porky's Cafe was released, directed by Chuck Jones and written by Rich Hogan. This version has the Porky's 1937 music playing in the opening. The version that previously was on Max had been restored. Hopefully it had been all corrected. Now, Porky was also in a couple of color shorts that year. We'll talk about them next time. Then it was almost a full year before he starred in his next cartoon. Confusion of a Nutsy Spy came out on January 23rd, 1943, which is not only my mom's birthday, but the exact one as well. Happy birthday. Directed by McCabe and written by Don Christensen. Even though it's in the public domain, it has been restored, but it's only available on iTunes. Go figure. The final cartoon on the set is Porky Pig's Feet, released on July 17th, 1943 by Tashlin and Miller. We did this on Platinum Collection Volume 3. This is the last Porky black and white, Bugs' only black and white appearance, and the first one to use Powerhouse. Just not the part you're thinking of. So we did it. Whew. Like I said at the beginning, if you can remember that far back, I kind of accepted this for what it was. It wasn't perfect, had its flaws, but you got all the Porky black and whites in one place, which at the time, after the ending of the Platinum collections, I wouldn't have thought they would even think about doing something like this. So this is also another big piece of the Looney Tunes puzzle if you're putting together some kind of home video collection. Now, I don't see them ever reissuing this on Blu-ray in one big chunk. What I can see them doing is what they did with the 40s Popeyes and what MGM did with the Pink Panther cartoons. Break them up into smaller bits of like 25 or 30 cartoons each and then do them chronologically, like Porky Pig 1935, 1937, Porky Pig 1938, 1940, something like that. But I wouldn't expect that to happen until a lot of other things have come out before it. Now, a few quick things before we go. No, it's been long enough already, but still. Today, if you're watching this on March 2nd when it comes out, Boomerang will be doing a sort of Oscar movie day thing. The 6 a.m. and 1 p.m. showing of Looney Tunes will feature movie-themed cartoons, including at least one new one added to the rotation, Daffy Duck in Hollywood. Whether it stays in the rotation, that's another story. I'll let you know if anything else interesting shows up next episode. Viewer Brian LT left a comment that he thought the Foghorn Leghorn episodes was a little bit too much on the full screen, widescreen issue. That's kind of a fair point. Probably did end up focusing on that a bit much and needed to deal a little bit more with the actual characters. So when we get around to going over cartoons that dealt with some of the other main characters in the Foghorn shorts, we'll go back and take another look at some of these. I'm mainly talking about Henry Hawk and Miss Prissy. We'll definitely be dealing with some of their appearances when we get to the Golden collections. Now, if we can finally get Squawkin' Hawk out in a digital home video, that would be the perfect excuse for him. Miss Prissy will be done when we get to An Egg Scrambled, so we'll go over her whole history, her original inspiration, and a famous TV character she kind of reminds me of. Ooh, Jethro. Now, we'll also be doing a solo Barnyard Dog cartoon on the collections as well, so I'll probably do something there with him. Now, if any of the other missing Foghorns end up coming out, we'll use that as an excuse as well. I'm happy to get the constructive criticism. I want to make these as enjoyable as possible. When I started doing podcasts, one of the very first criticisms I ever got was from one of my best friends, Darren. He had 2 words: slow down. My wife totally agrees with that. So, thanks, Brian. Finally, you heard me talk about my buddy David's mom, Ellie, when we did the Top Cat episode. She was kind of like a second mom to me as well when they used to live next door. Unfortunately, she passed away last month, but she lived a long life and definitely marched to the beat of her own drummer the entire time. David and I were talking about one of our favorite moments. His mom and dad took us to see Under the Rainbow and Caddyshack at the drive-in on Route 18. So we left sometime around midnight. As we're pulling on the 18, she goes, "Ah, crap. Forgot to go shopping today. Let's just stop off at Pathmark." So we were at 12:30 at night doing the food shopping, going up and down the aisles. Can we get this? Oh, that was life with Ellie. We're all gonna miss her. Now, next episode, we're going to concentrate on some of the important cartoons from this set and go into them a little more thoroughly. We'll go over Porky's origin, the changes he went through over the years, and where he ended up by the time the black and white era ended. Plus, as usual, we'll have some extras thrown in as well. I hope you enjoyed all of this. This was a real labor of love. Next time, it's Porky 10 plus 1, plus 4. We'll talk about 10 important black and white cartoons and one significant color cartoon. You probably already know what it is. Like I said, plus some extras. I'm John Hartra. Thanks for watching.